Padre Pio, a humble friar whose life was marked by prayer, fasting, and unwavering devotion to God, often witnessed mysteries that were beyond the reach of ordinary men. He had seen angels, experienced profound ecstasies, and walked in the intimate presence of God. Yet even he was shaken to his very core the day he was allowed to witness the fate of a soul in its final moments. This was not a vision born of imagination, curiosity, or fear. It was a glimpse into the profound and unyielding reality of eternal choice, a reality that most of humanity scarcely considers until the final hour. He saw a soul, one that had walked a lifetime in the light of grace, a soul that had been touched repeatedly by God's mercy. It had known the comfort of prayer, the guidance of the sacraments, the gentle touch of divine invitation, and yet, in the very last heartbeat of its existence, it turned away. Padre Pio watched as the soul stiffened, recoiling not from punishment, but from the embrace of mercy itself. It closed its heart to the one who had pursued it patiently through every trial, every temptation, every moment of weakness, offering love that never wavered, guidance that never ceased, and forgiveness that was always within reach. The vision came suddenly, like a flash of lightning illuminating a darkened landscape. The air around Padre Pio seemed charged, vibrating with the weight of eternity, as though heaven itself paused to witness the soul's final act. He could feel the heaviness of the moment, a pressure not of physical force, but of spiritual gravity, pressing upon him and the soul he beheld. The soul, though fully aware of the infinite love it had received throughout its life, made a conscious decision. It chose darkness over light, obstinacy over surrender, self-will over divine guidance. In that instant, Padre Pio understood a staggering truth. Even a life filled with grace, with devotion, with repeated opportunities to respond to God's love, could be undone in a single, deliberate choice. The vision revealed that eternity hinges not only on what has been done, but on the final orientation of the heart at the moment of death. It is a moment when all illusions fall away, when the soul is seen for what it truly is, and when freedom is exercised in its purest and most terrifying form. Padre Pio trembled, not out of fear alone, but out of awe and sorrow. He realized that even the faithful, even those who have lived close to the sacraments, who have walked with angels and tasted the sweetness of prayer, are never immune to the danger of turning away at the last instant. The vision was a warning, a revelation, and a profound lesson in divine justice and mercy. It reminded him, and through him reminds us, that grace is patient, love is relentless, and freedom is sacred, and that the choices of a single heartbeat can carry consequences that stretch into eternity. The vision did not linger only on the final moment of life. Padre Pio was drawn backward, through the decades that had led to this instant, and he saw the soul as it had moved through life, surrounded by grace and divine mercy at every turn. Every prayer, every sacrament, every act of devotion, every whispered moment of contrition, and even the small, unnoticed gestures of love and kindness, all were visible to him as if laid out in a tapestry of light. Angels had guided this soul through every trial and temptation, whispering counsel, offering encouragement, holding it tenderly in the embrace of God's care. Prayers had been lifted by the faithful for its salvation, and every sacrament received had shone like a beacon, marking opportunities to draw closer to the divine. Yet, Padre Pio saw, with a sorrow that pierced his very being, how all of this was ignored, deflected, or set aside. The soul's heart had grown stubborn, its mind hardened by fear, pride, or simple inattention to the voice of God. Each invitation to repentance, each chance to surrender fully to the divine will, had been met with resistance, and now, after a lifetime of repeated mercy, when the final moment approached, the soul rejected it all. It turned deliberately away from the light that had never left it, from the grace that had patiently waited for decades. Padre Pio felt the sorrow of heaven itself. The angels who had tirelessly guided and protected this soul could do nothing in the face of its obstinacy. For all the mercy poured out, for all the guidance offered, for all the prayers lifted, the soul had exercised the freedom given to it by God, and it had chosen to resist. In this, Padre Pio understood a profound and painful truth. Time is a gift, but it is fleeting. Grace is boundless, but freedom is sacred. God cannot force a heart to surrender. Even after a lifetime immersed in mercy, the choice to reject that mercy is absolute, irrevocable, and carries consequences beyond imagination. The vision impressed upon him the tragic weight of human freedom. It was not merely a story of a soul lost at the final moment, but of a lifetime wasted through countless refusals, each small act of indifference or pride, building a wall between the creature and its creator. Every unheeded invitation, every ignored spark of conscience, every deliberate refusal had led to this singular, heart-breaking moment. Padre Pio saw clearly that it is not sin alone that destroys, but the refusal to embrace the love that redeems. A life can be cloaked in devotion, punctuated with good works, and yet be lost if the heart refuses the final act of surrender to God. And in this vision, Padre Pio felt a deep, almost tangible grief, not only for the soul he witnessed, but for all souls who walk through life under the same merciful gaze, who take for granted the patience and tenderness of God, who assume there will always be another chance, another opportunity to repent. He saw the heartbreaking reality that the greatest tragedy is not merely the presence of sin, but the deliberate refusal to respond to love, the rejection of mercy when it matters most, and the blindness to what has been given freely for a lifetime. Then, Padre Pio saw the moment that defines eternity. The soul, poised at the edge of life, faced the radiant approach of divine light. It was not a gentle glow, nor a distant shimmer, but a brilliance so overwhelming, so pure, that every hidden corner of the soul was illuminated. Every sin, every hesitation, every act of pride, every opportunity ignored, every whisper of mercy that had ever reached it. Everything was revealed in that unyielding light. The soul recognized, with stark clarity, all that it had been offered, and all that it had refused. And yet, it did not bend. It did not cry out. It did not plead for forgiveness. Its refusal was deliberate, conscious, and absolute, as if the weight of eternity itself rested in that single heartbeat. Padre Pio could feel the immensity of that moment pressing down, not upon him, but upon the soul itself. Time seemed to shrink. Centuries of grace and mercy were condensed into a single decisive instant. The soul trembled under the sheer reality of God's presence, and yet it hardened, choosing darkness over light, pride over humility, self-will over surrender. Padre Pio understood the horror in full. Even the most devout, even the most faithful, even those who had walked through a life bathed in prayer, can undo everything with one deliberate act of rejection at the final hour. The vision revealed the absolute seriousness of human freedom. God does not coerce, He invites. He does not impose, He waits. He leans close with mercy and patience, allowing the soul to turn freely toward or away from Him. And when the heart refuses in that decisive moment, when it closes against the light that has never ceased to shine, no mercy, no plea, no prayer, no intercession can alter the course it has chosen. Padre Pio saw the tension of eternity itself hang in that instant, like a suspended breath, a universe waiting on the movement of a single will. And as he gazed, he trembled, not merely from fear, but from the profound weight of understanding. He saw the staggering responsibility that rests in every human heart, the freedom to choose life or death, grace or ruin, light or darkness. In that one heartbeat, eternity is written. And Padre Pio knew that the soul's refusal, deliberate and absolute, carried a truth both terrifying and sobering, that God's patience is infinite, but freedom is sacred, and the consequences of a single choice can echo forever. As the divine light drew near, the soul recoiled, not out of fear of punishment, but out of fear of truth itself. It saw itself laid bare, stripped of every illusion, every self-deception, every mask it had worn throughout life. The soul faced the absolute reality of what it had chosen, the stark consequences of turning away from the source of all life, and the weight of that truth was unbearable. Padre Pio saw it tremble, a creature once embraced by mercy, now confronted with the magnitude of the love it had refused. And yet, even in the midst of this revelation, even while recognizing the infinite grace it had rejected, it refused to surrender. Its pride, its fear, its stubborn will anchored it to a path that would lead only to darkness. Padre Pio watched in anguish as the angels, who had faithfully guided and guarded this soul throughout its life, wept silently. Their sorrow was invisible to mortal eyes, yet it radiated in the unseen realm, a silent testimony to the tragedy of free will misused. The soul's refusal was not a sudden act, but the culmination of a lifetime of choices that hardened the heart, brick by brick, against the love of God. Padre Pio felt the weight of the horror pressing in, not upon him, but upon the soul itself. The grief, the despair, the incomprehensible isolation of a creature fully known, fully loved, and yet fully rejecting that love, was like a physical force, almost tangible in its intensity. In that moment, Padre Pio understood the perfection of divine justice. The soul suffers not because God wills it, but because it has freely chosen the consequences of its own obstinacy. There is no coercion, no external imposition. The torment arises entirely from the separation from the one who gives life and sustains it. The horror of rejection is total, absolute, and unrelenting. It is a self-inflicted wound, a deliberate severing from the source of all mercy and love, and yet it is fully just. The friar realized that this vision was not merely a story of punishment, but a revelation of profound spiritual truth. The soul's torment was not punishment imposed by a distant God. It was the natural outcome of a heart that had repeatedly turned away, a heart that refused the embrace of mercy even when it was within reach. Padre Pio saw that this horror could have been avoided at any moment, yet the soul's final act of defiance sealed its fate. It was a lesson for all living, a warning etched into the friar's very being. Turning from God in the last instant, after a lifetime of grace, brings consequences that no human plea, no act of contrition, no intercession can reverse. And as he gazed upon the soul's steadfast refusal, Padre Pio trembled, not out of despair, but in awe of the truth he had been allowed to witness. Here was the reality of freedom, fully realized, the freedom to choose life, and the freedom to reject it. And the horror lay not in God's judgment, but in the soul's own deliberate turning away from what it could not live without, the infinite love that had never ceased calling, never ceased waiting, never ceased offering salvation until the very last instant. Then came the instant of the fall. Padre Pio saw the soul plunge into darkness, not gradually, not hesitantly, but with the swiftness and finality of a stone hurled from the highest tower. There was no pause, no hesitation, no opportunity for regret. only the immediate, total, and irrevocable descent. He watched as the soul's fleeting thought flashed across its mind, a moment of awareness, a glimpse of recognition of all that had been lost, the mercy refused, the grace neglected, the love spurned. And in that single piercing instant, it vanished into the eternal night. The terror of that moment defies human language. It is not merely fear. It is the horror of a creature fully aware, fully free, fully responsible, and now entirely abandoned to the consequences of its own will. Padre Pio felt the weight of that fall in the invisible realm, as if the very heavens shuddered at the soul's rejection. He sensed the echoes of eternity ripple outward, a shockwave born of the gravity of that one last final act. The soul's fall was more than a movement. It was a rupture, a severing of every tether to mercy, light, and hope. Yet even amid this unspeakable horror, Padre Pio saw a tragic beauty in the steadfast patience of God. Mercy had been offered, steadfast and unyielding, until the very last heartbeat. The tragedy did not lie in the absence of love, but in the deliberate refusal to accept it. He realized that the final decision of the heart carries more weight than a lifetime of devotion, more than decades of prayer, fasting, or service. A single moment can undo what years have built. As he gazed upon the scene, Padre Pio saw the fullness of divine justice intertwined with divine mercy. The soul was lost, yes, but it had chosen that path freely. There was no coercion, no sudden punishment. It was the natural consequence of a will hardened, of a heart that turned away at the last possible moment. And in the silence that followed the fall, he understood the eternal truth that every heartbeat matters, every choice matters, and the final act of surrender, or refusal, decides the destiny of the soul. The fall was decisive, it was immediate, it was eternal, and it left an impression upon Padre Pio that would never fade. A vivid, unshakable reminder of the gravity of the human heart, and the infinite seriousness of the freedom God gives us, a freedom that can lead either to eternal light or eternal darkness in a single, irrevocable instant. After the vision, Padre Pio was left in deep and profound reflection. The images of the soul's final moments, its deliberate refusal, and the swift, irrevocable fall weighed heavily upon his heart. He understood immediately that this revelation was not meant only to warn about a single soul, but to awaken all who are living to the seriousness of every moment in life. Every choice, every thought, every gesture, even those that seem small or insignificant, carries weight in the eternal balance. Each prayer offered sincerely, each act of love, each moment of mercy accepted or neglected, contributes to the soul's journey. Padre Pio realized that a life lived in the light of grace, even one filled with devotion and holy works, can be lost in a single instant if the heart turns away from God at the last moment. He reflected on the fragility of the human spirit, even among those who appear closest to God. The vision showed him that even those who stand at the altar, those who have devoted decades to prayer, study, and service, are vulnerable to the final rebellion of the will. The human heart, gifted with freedom by God, can choose for itself, and in the final moment, the choice is decisive. Padre Pio understood that the warning of this vision was not merely terrifying, but deeply instructive. It is a call to vigilance, to humility, and to a continual, conscious surrender to God. The lesson was clear. Mercy is always present, freedom is sacred, but the heart must remain open and receptive to the grace that has been offered. With this realization, Padre Pio turned to prayer, his own soul heavy with both sorrow and compassion. He prayed with intense fervor, not only for the soul he had seen, but for all souls walking through life, often unaware of the gravity of their choices. He begged God to keep humanity attentive to the gift of life, to preserve the faithful from carelessness or pride, and to awaken hearts to the ever-present call of divine mercy. Padre Pio prayed for the courage to remain vigilant himself, and for the grace to guide others through prayer and intercession, knowing that one last act, one final heartbeat, can seal eternity. He also understood that this lesson was meant for all of humanity, for every soul who has ever walked under the sun and felt the call of God's love. It was a reminder that life is fragile, that freedom is a gift to be cherished, and that the opportunity to surrender to grace is always present, but it must be embraced before it is too late. The vision imprinted upon him the urgent need to live in constant awareness, to nurture the soul with prayer, humility, and acts of love, so that the heart remains open and ready to receive mercy until the very end. Padre Pio's reflection after the vision became a profound message for the living. Life is not merely a passage of time, but a series of choices that matter eternally. Every moment, every decision, every act of love or neglect has the potential to draw a soul closer to God or to push it further from the light. And so he prayed unceasingly for grace, vigilance, and perseverance, for himself, for the faithful, and for every soul who may one day stand at the threshold of eternity, facing the final and irrevocable choice. In the quiet aftermath, Padre Pio knelt in prayer, tears streaming, his heart heavy with the weight of the vision he had received. He prayed for the soul he had seen, for all souls who stand at the edge of eternity, and for those who may turn away in their final moments. The vision revealed both the horror of rejection and the unyielding mercy of God. God permits such revelations not to terrify, but to awaken, to stir hearts to conversion, to call souls to surrender while hope remains. Padre Pio understood that the final heartbeat is decisive, but until that moment, hope and mercy are always present. The message is clear. Surrender to God today, trust in His love, and pray without ceasing. Each soul has a choice, and the weight of that choice extends into eternity. The vision remains a warning, a lesson, and a call to action. Every moment of life is an opportunity to embrace mercy, to turn toward God, and to ensure that, when the final second comes, the heart is open, ready, and surrendered.